to the entertaining Talkin' Sports.
What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. I have another video up later today, but of course I had to get this one up first as there is big news in the New York Giants world that really should not be a surprise to any of us. I think after all of us saw the photos and we heard the story about Aldrick Rosas with the DWI or DUI, whatever it was called, which he was traveling 100 miles an hour, and we'll have to wait to see all the details that play out. But regardless, it's not our concern anymore as New York Giants fans, because Aldrick Rosas, my relationship with him is as a football player for the New York Giants, which will no longer be the case. This morning, it came out that the New York Giants plan to cut Aldrick Rosas. The only question I have, I have two questions. One, why did it take so long? I mean, to me, it was pretty cut and dry from the start that he did something he shouldn't have done. He's a kicker. He's coming off of a poor year. It didn't make much sense to carry this out, and we'll see who the New York Giants decide to bring in. A lot of people have linked Stephen Gostkowski as a potential candidate for the New York Giants. Of course, he kicked with Joe Judge as his special teams coach, and maybe that'll be the case, but you have to ask yourself, why is it that the New England Patriots released Gostkowski? The other thing that's interesting, and we're going to get into the exact tweet in a second, is the money that this frees up for the New York Giants. Aldrick Rosas was due to make $3.3 million, which is a lot for a kicker. The Giants now could potentially elect to go out there and get a cheap kicker and maybe have a little bit of extra money to maybe bring in a veteran to help out this team. Now, you don't want to go too cheap because we all know as Giants fans last year that you need a sound kicker to win football games. And we'll get into just how poor Aldrick Rosas was last year. Now, of course, a lot of people blamed Zach Diassi for that, which is why the Giants benched him the last 3 or 4 games, the long snapper, and Rosas kicked better down the stretch. The Giants replaced him with KC Kreider, and hopefully that helps, with a better long snapper this year for the team. But let's jump into some of the quotes about Aldrick Rosas as he is no longer a New York Giant. Here is the tweet I wanted to show you guys from NFL Update. The Giants don't have a kicker on the roster after moving on from Aldrick Rosas. New Giants head coach Joe Judge knows free agent kicker Stephen Gostkowski from his days in New England. Would make sense. The Rosas release saves $3.3 million in cap. And then just going over real quickly what Rosas did last year in terms of a kicker. In 16 games, he only had 17 field goal attempts. That surprised me a little bit. But he was only 12 for 17. That's horrible. I believe the year he went to the Pro Bowl, just the year before, I think he only missed 1 kick. And he missed 4 extra points. He was 35 for 39. So that was a huge problem for the New York Giants last year at the kicker spot. It certainly cost us a game, maybe 2, in which we would have won had we had the Aldrick Rosas from 2018. But regardless, I think this is something that we all knew. Now the only question remains is what happens with DeAndre Baker. That case doesn't seem as cut and dry as the Aldrick Rosas case did. Not to mention, you used first-round draft capital on DeAndre Baker, and you traded up to get him. The fact that Rosas was a kicker, like I said at the top of this video, I was surprised he wasn't cut from the start. Especially coming off of as poor of a year as he did. Will they bring in Stephen Gostkowski? I'm not 100% sure. I could see them, like I've talked about in the past, going the Chicago Bears route when they cut Cody Parkey and trying out a bunch of kickers that they brought into training camp. And maybe that is what the New York Giants will do. Now, when I first heard about this, I said, what took them so long? But did it really affect anything? It's not like a bunch of kickers are getting swallowed up off the open market. So I'm sure the Giants will be able to find somebody. I've heard people bring up destroying the YouTube kicker. Don't bank on that, even though it would be a cool story. I do think that Gostkowski is a guy that they should at least look at, depending on what the price tag would be. But because of his ties to Joe Judge, I think it would make a lot of sense. He's a proven kicker. The other thing I want to point out about Stephen Gostkowski, he's accustomed to playing in the Northeast with the Winds, playing in New England. So that could play a factor as well. And I think right now he seems as if he would be the front runner. Of course, it could be anybody. But look for the Giants to go out there and sign a kicker within the next couple of days. And it may not just be one. You may have a competition headed into training camp. But Aldrick Rosas will no longer be a New York Giant. I wish him the best of luck. He was obviously great for the New York Giants 2 years ago. And I wish no ill will on anybody else. But he's not with the team anymore. And we're in the market for a kicker. As always, guys, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe. Drop a comment. Maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.